Throughout my childhood, I remember hearing variations of the same comment from every single teacher, tutor, and coach my mom put me in classes with. They told me that I have potential but was wavering in commitment. It's as though this feedback was a self-fulfilling prophecy because around the 3-month period, I would find myself hitting a burnout phase in all my classes. In fencing, I would intentionally take too long to put on the armor so I could miss the round. In speech arts, I would risk forgetting my lines on stage instead of putting in the effort to memorize my pieces beforehand. But despite the countless lectures I put my teachers through, they never made me feel like they would give up on me. In fact, my teachers had often become the refuge for the unprecedented adversity life had thrown at me. You see, my teachers weren't just tasked with teaching me how to get a 1600 on the SAT or win fencing tournaments. They were tasked to do the impossible, to inspire. No matter where you look in the world, our teachers serve as a cornerstone of mentorship and motivation for all of the students that walk into their classroom. That was especially true of Tara Westover, who grew up without a formal education in rural Idaho as a result of her family's extreme survivalist regime. Her path in life was laid out for her long before she could develop her own identity, help with the family farm, care for her siblings, start a family of her own. Despite these circumstances, Tara managed to obtain her doctorate's degree from Cambridge and became a visiting fellow at Harvard University in 2010. In a place like rural Idaho, where university graduation rates are under 17%, Tara's story is a 1 in a million anomaly. So how exactly did Tara manage to become an outlier in a family that told her women and doctorate degrees don't belong in the same sentence? Most importantly, how did she gain the courage to narrate her own story? The secret to Tara's success lies in the mentors that helped her along the way. After graduating from Brigham Young University, Tara faced one of the biggest decisions in her lifetime: to continue pursuing her education at Cambridge, where she wasn't sure if she could succeed, or return to a community that never took her or her dreams seriously. To Tara, it seemed like a lose-lose situation. Nevertheless, it was her supervisor, Professor Steinberg's words that cemented Tara's decision. Refusing to let Tara's insecurities get the best of her, he said, "The most powerful determinant of who you are is inside you." Later on, as Tara attempts to recall the catalyst for her educational success, it would be these words of wisdom that she forever owes her gratitude to. Sometimes you don't need to wear a cape or be made of steel to rewrite someone's life. Despite this, teachers are often overlooked and unappreciated. Most people don't see them as the inspiring and hardworking individuals they really are. In many wealthy developed countries, teachers receive below a living wage and work endlessly outside of school hours. Their compensation does not reflect the immense value they bring to our children, societies, and worlds. Even worse, post-pandemic, the teaching crisis has evolved into a plague. In fact, 34% of teachers in countries like the US are thinking about leaving the profession entirely. During an international education conference, representatives around the world were asked, how many teachers choosing to quit would create a catastrophic drop in your organization's ability to educate young people? The answers were all shockingly low, with one administrator replying, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, even one teacher leaving is enough to fracture an entire education system. One teacher leaving means that thousands of rural kids like Tara Andover will never fulfill their true potential. You see, at the end of the day, we don't just expect our teachers to show us how to solve for X. We expect them to give us pep talks when we are buried under the pressure of grades, preparing us for situations that aren't just exclusive to school, but for the rest of our lives. From public speaking to calculus, my teachers have been my heroes since day one. Truly, I owe all of my achievements to them. Life is never smooth sailing to the top, but we have their words of wisdom to help us face those future storms. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Kelly. Now we move to the Q&A section. So can I ask in the audience if you could raise a hand if you have a question to ask to Kelly. Cameron, yes.
Hello, Kelly. My question is, you talk about teachers being this massive vehicle for like social change and people to obtain the best they can in life. What do you think the mechanisms are to protect those teachers and keep them in professions?
Of course, that's a really good question. I think the reality is that teachers are always facing the fear of being underpaid and understaffed. And this is especially prominent in rural and impoverished areas. For instance, in countries like China, teachers have faced a massive fear of being shifted to urban areas. There's not that much of an incentive for them to stay in rural areas because of the lack of infrastructure, because of the lack of incentives for them to work hard, for them to help these students achieve their goals. And I think that the government actually has has the capacity to help these students and help these teachers by subsidizing these educational sectors. I think that at the end of the day, it all comes down to funding. And if we are able to prioritize shifting some of the financial resources that we pour into sectors like the military, we're able to massively impact the education system.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And do we have another question, please, from Kelly? I can see lots of IPSC participants out there. One of you has to have something to ask. Jasmine, do you have something? Nadia.
Thank you. Well, Kelly, what is your definition of a hero then? Your personal definition, okay? Understanding.
Of course, that's again a really good question. I think my personal definition of a hero comes down to whether that individual is able to make a big change on your life. And I think that's what teachers do, because they allow you to see that education isn't just a linear path. They allow you to see that it's a zigzag line. Sometimes you hit a plateau and boulders that are too big for you to move on your own. Ladies and gentlemen, that's when your heroes come in. That's where teachers are able to be your glasses, so you aren't blurred by a vision of insecurities. And so you'll be able to see the path ahead of you a little more clearly. I think that's the true purpose of heroes, and teachers truly do reflect this purpose.